Good evening. I'm call to order this meeting of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners. Thank you all for being here with us tonight and watching and listening. We're happy to have you here. Our Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we're going to be led by Police Chief Bill Carter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you, Chief. For our invocation tonight, we're going to hear from Pastor Wallace Johnson of the Wendell United Methodist Church. Good evening, Pastor.
Pastor Johnson?
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much for being with us
Hey,
tonight.
Mary Gray. Thank you for the chance to pray. Thank you for working through this technology. I know it's tough. We'll pray for you this evening. Let's pray, everybody. Lord, we give you thanks for the day. Thank you for the sunshine that dries the rain and the rain that nourishes us. Pray your Holy Spirit this Pentecost week would continue to rain down on our town, on our leaders, on our people, even as we're starting to get a little bit restless with the shutdown and the hope for reopening. Pray that our leaders would lead us well. Bless their conversation. Bless all of those who will call in about the technology. Lord God, help us with the technology. Bless us this evening. I give you thanks for this town, for our leaders, and for your lordship over it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? I think here we need to add something to the consent agenda, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Mayor, if the board would consider adding item 3B to the consent agenda that was provided to the board. That is the item that would give authorization to the Wake County tax collector to serve as the tax collector for revenues for Wendell.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of item 3B.
So moved.
All right. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, I'm going to poll the board again, just like we've been doing previously. Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski?
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank y'all very much. There's no one signed up for public comment tonight, either by call-in or written submission. We do have one unique situation. Commissioner Boyette is unexpectedly detained at the fire station tonight due to the state of emergency that we're all experiencing right now. So I need a motion to excuse him should something arise that he would need to be called away, so that he doesn't have to stop and he would not be marked. Should that happen. So we need a motion to go ahead and excuse him should he be called away unexpectedly.
This is Commissioner Lutz. I'll make the motion to excuse Commissioner Boyette in the event an emergency should arise and need to leave.
Hey, thank you. You said it a lot better than I did. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion to excuse him in the event of an emergency. I'm going to poll the board again. Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski?
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
Okay. Let's see. We have no we have no recognitions and reports tonight. We'll move on into our public hearings. Did we approve the consent agenda? We added something to it, the motion approved it when we adjusted the agenda, didn't it?
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
That's-
Yes, that was the
It put us
first.
a little bit out of order.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I was just making sure that we covered everything we were supposed to.
Y'all adjusted the agenda and voted, but you only voted once tonight, correct? So you need to vote on the consent agenda. You voted twice?
I think we,
Well, you voted for the agenda and then
As-
the
Boyette.
For Boyette, but not the,
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Commissioner Lutz, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with item 3B added.
Okay. Commissioner Joyner,
aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky.
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we have no recognitions and reports tonight. We'll move right on into our public hearings. Due to the state of emergency and in the interest of public health, we've made accommodations tonight to allow for public participation in our public hearings, but no public attendance is at the town hall will be permitted. No board action on public hearings will occur in a virtual meeting if a virtual meeting is used to conduct public hearings. The item will be continued, and the public will have 24 hours from the end of the meeting to provide comments on the public hearing item. So we have 3 tonight. You have 24 hours to comment after tonight. The first, item 5A, is a public hearing on a, did someone say something? Okay. On an R7 conditional district for a property located at 1425 Eagle Rock Road.
Good evening, I'm
Hey,
Brian
Brian.
Coates, I'm Assistant Planning Director for the Town of Wendell Planning Department. The first public hearing before you this evening is a public hearing on an R7 conditional district for property located at 1425 Eagle Rock Road. The applicant is Brian Duncan from the Spalding Group. The applicant has requested to create an R7 conditional district for the 39-acre property. The proposed conditional district consists of residential subdivision featuring both a mix of single-family and townhome dwelling units. The applicant's proposed R7 conditional district will feature 82 homes and 90 townhomes. This project's located about a quarter-mile north of Wendell Falls Parkway in Eagle Rock. It is being proposed to be consistent with a comprehensive plan where moderate intensity new development is appropriate for more housing options. The purpose of a conditional district is to provide an alternative means of land development and an alternative zoning procedure that may be used to establish residential, commercial, or industrial districts at appropriate locations in accordance with the planning and development objectives of the town. A CD, a conditional district, may depart from a strict application of requirements. They may allow uses which are not normally allowed in that zoning district. In this case, they are adding townhomes, which are an allowed use in an R7, but they're asking for 53% of the units be townhomes on the site. The second purpose of a conditional district is to establish a more complete living and working environment through the application, through community planning and property design. A conditional district should provide a variety of natural features, scenic areas, efficient economical land use, amenities, and orderly and economic development, and the protection of existing and future adjacent development. The property is currently located in the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction, or commonly referred to as ETJ, and is zoned rural agricultural and will need to be annexed into the town of Wendell. The town's policy is when land goes into the ETJ, it is traditionally zoned rural agricultural until the development request is applied for, and then the rezoning process begins. Here's a map showing the property. It's directly north of the intersection of Eagle Rock and Wendell Falls Parkway. The applicant has proposed 7 conditions. We'll go through each one. The first condition is that multifamily dwellings, limited to townhomes only, so no apartments, just townhomes, shall be permitted use in the R7, and the maximum number of townhomes shall not exceed 53% of the total units. The townhomes shall provide detailed design along all primary elevations and elevations facing a public street or open space. Detailed design shall be provided for of at least the 3 following architectural features, and they can vary based on construction plans. They need to have dormers, gables, recessed entries, covered porch, could be pillars or posts, eaves, which project out over the roof line. They could have bay windows and other design features. The condition that they're proposing is the exact same condition that Wendell Falls has in their PUD for what their townhomes will look like. There's just lots of design guidelines on the townhomes. Garage doors shall either contain windows or carriage-style adornments, and those adornments are traditionally above the garage opening, and they're a little decorative feature. instead of just having a garage door. The use of vinyl siding is prohibited except for trim elements of the dwelling unit facade. So it could be the window, around the window could be vinyl, but the siding is cannot be. Minimum lot size for single-family homes shall be 4,400 square feet or larger. The 4,400 is the minimum lot size. Their average lot size for the proposal is roughly 5,800 square feet, so the lot sizes do vary. UDO Section 5, they're asking to have front-loaded single-family home lots on a 40-acre, 40-foot wide lot width. And then they're asking for the cul-de-sac on the far end for Street F be longer than 300 feet. And for that reason, there's some environmental reasons, so there couldn't be another stub there. There's a lot of wetlands in that back right-hand corner. Before you is a map of the development. Entrance would be off Eagle Rock. As you enter, there would be townhomes with garages in the back. And then that kind of is phase one, where there would be a playground and some open space. Phase two would be the middle chunk of the property, which would have a mix of single-family homes and townhomes, just like the first section, and would include the amenity center, which includes pool, recreation, and like an amenity center, which would have restrooms and things for the pool. And then the third section would be all single-family to the far right, the far eastern side, would be single-family homes with some small pocket parks and a greenway section that would link the third phase with second and the amenity center, so they wouldn't have to necessarily use the sidewalk network to get there. There is a 20-foot perimeter buffer around the entire Type B buffer around the site. There also, if you notice the cul-de-sac right near the entrance, the two lots off that cul-de-sac are much larger than some of the others, and that's to provide a transition from the single-family homes down there. So they're more in size with the neighboring properties. Development of the site will require connection to city water and sewer, which will require annexation. The next public hearing before you tonight is the annexation of this property. The town's arterial and collector street plan calls for widening and improvements to Eagle Rock Road, which ultimately will be a 4-lane divided road. The developer at this time is responsible for improving up to a 3-lane undivided section. This would cause some widening in that area in front of the property that they are asking for the R7 on. They will have to dedicate the full right-of-way and then construct sidewalks at the full build-out. So you'll see before any COs can be granted on homes, those road improvements would have to be made. And ultimately, sidewalks and things like the curb will be in its final place as road improvements are made. There was some questions, I think, about if neighboring properties' roads would be improved, and that we can't require that unless it was in a TIA. The TIA does mention that a required lane, 250-foot lane from Wendell Falls turning south onto Eagle Rock as a right turn lane will be constructed as part of this project before the housing is actually built. There is a minor collector going through the entire site, which has bike lanes, and it's a 67-foot right-of-way going through the property, which ultimately, if the property is to the east developed, would provide a nice collector street from Eagle Rock to Edgemont Landing. So it would be a nice connection for the future. As I said, the applicants indicated there'll be 3 phases on the property. The Wendell Comprehensive Plan does define this area as an S4 controlled growth. It's an area where we are typically close to thoroughfares and at key crossroad locations. This sector is where moderate intensity new development is appropriate and where most of the community's new growth should occur. This is kind of a traditional neighborhood development. Homes are close together. They're very walkable. There's amenities, tree-lined streets. For me as a planner, when I think traditional neighborhood that's walkable, this is one of those developments. This sector could have nearby commercial and civic uses. And so from a comp plan perspective, this use is very appropriate. You can see the map tends to have a mixed activity at that intersection. TRC, the applicants addressed all TRC comments identified to date. If the master plan is approved, the TRC would also review the following final development plan, as staff will usually refer to that as the construction drawings. Planning Board recommendation at their May 4th, 2020 meeting, the Planning Board voted 5-2 in favor of the requested conditional district. Statement of plan consistency, the proposed conditional district is found to be consistent with the recommended uses outlined in the Wendell land use plan for the S4 sector and is reasonable to allow for diversity in housing options. Furthermore, the proposed amendments are found to be consistent with the comp plan, which help provide for a range of housing opportunities, including upscale, senior, and downtown living. Staff supports the proposed conditional district. And I can answer any questions that you have.
Any questions from the board? Yeah.
Commissioner Lutz here. I have a couple questions. Could you go back and speak to the phases again, Brian?
Yeah, show on the map.
Yeah. So you can see these dark bluish black lines
Okay.
separate the phasing of the project. So in the first phase, there'll be some single-family townhomes with a park. Second phase, more bulk of the housing of single-family townhomes in the amenity center. And then in the third phase would contain these 2 pocket parks.
Okay.
And then the Greenway Trail that would go over to phase 2.
And I know I asked you about some of these questions earlier, but am I to assume that all the little skinny, narrow lots are the townhome lots there in the center?
Yes, there's townhomes at the entrance. They're all alley loaded. So when you come onto the street, you will not see garages, or it'll be a nice entrance with all the garages in the back off alleyways.
Okay.
And then all the townhomes in here will be alley loaded as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
So, can you help me out?
This is Commissioner Joyner. Say your name, people listening.
Brian Jason Joyner. In looking at that map and the phasing, so there's pocket parks in phase 3. It looks like a bulk of the amenities are in the phase 3. Can you speak to at least your experience and work on them as far as their timeline? I understand. We always have to, I guess, contemplate if phase 1 happens and 2 or 3 doesn't.
So phase 1 will have a park with equipment. It's in the development plan, so it's part of the water allocation policy. If you give us information on your actual playgrounds in details, and so it's certified playground equipment that will be in the park in phase 1. Phase 2 actually has the pool, the amenity center, another playground. Phase 3 has a greenway trail and 2 small pocket parks with like benches and shrubbery and things like that. So there's amenities in each phase as they go.
I guess I appreciate the answers to the question again. It's Commissioner Joyner. I thought this was part of what Commissioner Lutz was going to ask about, but share some concern about the phasing and the density. Like, yeah, the end product looks great. I like the way that end product looks, but I just worry about the in between. So understanding that front is a part that's, I guess, equal-ish in size to the other amenities is helpful.
For a clarifying question, are you asking about, do the improvements have to be bonded with each phase so that the people that are buying the lots know when they're getting which amenities?
Yes, and then just our likelihood of getting to phase 3. Is this something that the phases are really just something that we put in place, or is
So
this?
the amenities, the more expensive amenities are happening in the first 2 phases with pocket parks and a trail in phase 3. So the pool and all gets bonded with phase 2, which is where most of the density is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a quick question. Commissioner Deloach, confirm, you said there's a right turn lane coming from downtown, heading,
From Wendell Falls, that will go southbound on Eagle Rock. So where it backs up every day, everyone's trying to make that right turn from Wendell Falls Parkway to Johnston County.
okay?
There will be a 250-foot right turn lane, dedicated right turn lane. That's part of the TIA that's DOT approved.
Okay. My confusion? That's why I confirmed. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Maybe I have one more question here. Sorry, yeah, Commissioner Lutz, again. And then, Brian, just help me out. I know some of the nearby neighborhoods here, we have one that's kind of R2 of the road, another one that's, looks like it kind of gets close to Foxborough Crossing back over there, which is R3, I think it is. Aside from the townhome differences, what are other differences between those different zoning classifications? And I don't mean to put you on the spot with the question, but
So traditionally, the R7 district, they could request lots that are 3,500 square feet. They are not. This was a
Okay.
project that is really closer to an R4, but because they want to do townhomes, they need to ask for R7, which was a legal interpretation. In the R4, the minimum lot size is roughly 6,000 square feet. R3, it's roughly 10,000 square feet. In R2, it's 15,000. So it scales. And in this case, their average lot size is 5,800 square feet, and their minimum is 4,400. So they're kind of in between an R4 to R7.
I'm sorry, you said the average was 4,800 or 5,800?
5,800 is the average lot size.
Okay. But their minimum, we said, was
4,400 is what's in
Okay,
their
okay. I'm sorry.
condition, that they would not go smaller than that. Even an R7 would allow it, they're not asking to go that dense as a R7.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right, let's open the public hearing. Hear from the applicant.
The applicant's here available to answer any questions that
Okay.
you may have.
Okay, well, does anyone have any questions for the applicant? All right, well,
I have a question for the applicant.
sure.
I'm just curious, an applicant, why they feel like this would be such a, what is this going to add to our town that they feel like will enhance the livability of the citizens that are already here?
Just 1 second to,
Oh, man.
bring the applicant's volume up.
That's okay.
Okay.
Having to juggle things so
Okay.
you can hear everybody. Don't hesitate to ask.
The 427 to
John.
2691.
Can you add in?
All right.
You
should hear you now.
I can work that in there.
Brian Duncan, can you hear me?
Is this a thing that's gonna happen, or is this?
I can.
Are we putting?
Okay.
Although I apologize, you may have to repeat the question for me. I heard bits and pieces of it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, this is Commissioner Lutz, and I have kind of two questions for you. One is, I'll just ask it all at one time, and you can answer it. What do you feel like this project is going to bring to the town that is going to enhance the lives of the citizens that are already here? And then another question along with that is, we spoke a little bit tonight on the phasing, these 3 different phases, and what pace do you see between the start of this project and phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3?
Okay, I think I heard all of your questions. As far as what this project will bring to the town, I think it will bring a high quality, diverse development with diversified housing types, high architectural standards, good connectivity to the surrounding properties for future development. It brings extension of water and sewer infrastructure to set up this corridor for development right nicely. It also will bring some probably needed traffic improvements at the intersection of Eagle Rock Road and Wendell Falls Parkway in the form of the right turn lane, as well as some pretty substantial widening directly in front of the project. We feel like the design of this master plan kind of keeps it's mindful of the surrounding properties
uses. We have substantial buffers for buffering, as well as, you know, a fairly high, I feel like a fairly decently amenitized site for the number of lots. Each phase has at least one, if not two, amenities. And the kind of the strategy in phasing this was to be able to provide all three lot types within each phase as we go along, with the only exception being the last phase, phase 3. We wanted to keep that all single family to, as again, a better transition to that property to the east. I think that was all your questions, but tell me if I missed something.
If you don't mind just speaking to the pace at which you're planning for all three of these different phases to be built in and implemented.
Brian, you may have to help me with that. I'm sorry, I can't hear it.
No, can you hear me at all? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Brian Duncan, Commissioner Lutz wanted to know, do you know the pace of development when you anticipate those three phases occurring?
Sure. So the sewer infrastructure will be constructed from the east through the project all the way up to Eagle Rock Road. I would anticipate each phase, you know, depending on the rate of sales, you know, maybe opening up a phase every 6 to 8 months would be my best guess. Of course, that could vary depending on sales and a variety of other factors, but that would be my best guess.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? We have 2 comments from citizens for this, so we're going to ask the clerk to read those now.
The first public comment submitted for item 5A was submitted by Mr. David Lyles. It reads, Janine/Bob, public notice that went out made no mention of the virtual format for the hearing tonight. Brian call-in number is 919-375-6880. It appears people may not be aware of this. Those that aren't definitely did not put in requests to speak on virtual call. I've copied Robert Lyles and a neighbor, Mr. Shirley, as both have interest in Eagle Rock Road proposal and may have questions. Below are a couple of questions. Number 1, buffers are supposed to protect neighboring properties from audio, visual, soil, and water impacts from development. Plans show a buffer around the property except for several roads that are shown in the buffer zone. How does this buffer neighbor owners from the proposed use? If allowed, developers should be required to put up road barricades at property boundaries to help protect neighboring owners from theft, vandalism, trespassing, and illegal dumping. Number 2, Eagle Rock Road will be widened to accommodate turn lanes for traffic. Drainage ditches run parallel to both sides of the road. As the road is widened, I presume the drainage ditches will be moved also. This could require ditches on neighboring properties to be moved to ensure proper water drainage and flow is maintained in the area. Is the developer going to ensure this is addressed as part of the road construction? Mr. Lyles also submitted a photo of the notice that was presented to his property, which has been included in the packet on the dais for all of the board and was emailed to the board earlier. Our second public comment was submitted from Mr. Robert Lyles, and it reads, to encourage public participation instead of having a virtual meeting because of COVID-19, why not postpone or delay the meeting? There was no mention of a cutoff date for comments on the flyer that was sent out. The flyer showed up on Thursday, and there was no time to research anything before the cutoff time on Friday. When did the virtual meetings thing come about? There was no mention of that on the flyer. Is this public transparency? Is there truly a need for this housing? Wendell Falls is still a good ways from being at capacity. Has there been a traffic study for the additional traffic that will be created by this subdivision? It shows some road work, but it is only in this area. Does it go all the way to Wendell Falls Parkway and Wendell Boulevard? Once they get out of the subdivision, they have to be able to get to the major roads. Has there been a groundwater quality study done? Will there be follow-up studies to make sure that the water quality does not decrease? How are the water and sewer lines going to get across the wetlands to this property without adverse effects to the wetlands? Is there an impervious or pervious study for this subdivision? Do the local schools have the capacity to handle the amount of students that will live here? Will all infrastructure, water, sewer improvements to existing public roads, etc., be in place before any building of dwellings begins? Will there be noise and time restrictions on when work can be performed? Has there been a study or research done to see how surrounding land values could be affected? It seems to me that the small lot sizes would not help the surrounding land values. These are a few questions that I have off the top of my head. With a little more time, I will probably have had more. Since the roads shown lead up to surrounding properties, what measure are going to put in place to keep people from being encouraged to drive or venture onto the surrounding properties? Will the town of Wendell and the developer be assuming any responsibilities for damages that occur to surrounding property? What will be done to deter people from trespassing on the neighboring properties? Will the developer or town be clearly marking the property lines to discourage people from trespassing? Does the town or developer assume responsibility for people that may get injured while trespassing if they do not put up adequate deterrence? I hope that these situations never happen, but as we all know, people have a sense of entitlement and seem to at times to do or go where they want, even if they know better. Robert Lyles, 919-470-4242. And that's all of the public comment.
All right, thank you. Was the applicant able to hear that?
The applicant was given those comments an hour before the applicant was given those comments an hour before the meeting, as well. We can, if there's certain questions you have from those emails, I can certainly try to address some of the questions as well. I think we've touched on a few of them with questions, with answers already, but.
I just didn't know if hearing it, if it had jogged your recollection as anything else that maybe.
Just on the stub streets, that our town requirement is that stub streets or turnarounds go to the property line.
Yeah.
So that when the next property nearby develops, there's not a gap in that road. So where the buffer is disturbed, it is because there's a stub street there as part of the requirement by our town connectivity policy. There is not a groundwater study that was completed, as the project is on city water, city sewer. They're not going to be drilling wells to serve any of these homes or anything like that. As far as school capacity, when an applicant submits a subdivision plan, they fill out a form that's created by Wake County Public Schools, which talks about how many units and expected completion of those units, what year. And the school district does evaluate that yearly and looks at capacity in nearby schools. Infrastructure is like water, sewer, yes, all have to be in place before any home construction begins. And then road improvements have to be done before any COs are given for any homes. So those road improvements will have to be completed. Noise and time restrictions, the town UDO states 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. is our construction hours for all projects in the town of Wendell. And let's see if there's... The road improvements will just be for their frontage of their lot. It will not, they will not widen other people's frontage. This is just for in front of their property. And then during construction, there's things, silt fences go up around the property, for work. Traditionally, at the end of a stub, there's always some kind of marking that lets people know this is the end of the street. And some kind of, that will come out during road construction, construction drawing time. I think that answers the majority of the questions.
Since this is a conditional district, I assume the applicants agreed to the 7 conditions that are listed?
They have, yes.
Okay. All right, does anyone else have any questions? All right, I need a motion to continue this public hearing until our next meeting, Monday, June 8th.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to continue until our next meeting. I want to poll the board. Commissioner Joyner. Excuse me. Uh-huh. I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Mr. Attorney.
One procedural point. I don't think we're continuing the public hearing. Public hearing will actually close 24 hours after this meeting, but you are continuing the decision to the next meeting.
So I just.
Is that correct?
I don't know, we talked about this earlier, and that actually was asking that very question about the ability to receive comments. I thought the public.
No, the continuation is of the item, the public hearing remains open so we can take comment.
Until.
The
24
public
hours.
by state law can provide comment for 24 hours after the end of this meeting, but the item is continued to your next meeting, June 8th.
So we don't have to officially close the public hearing?
No, you need to leave it open so that the public can provide comment.
Okay.
Leave it open.
The
Jim?
action item is continued to the next meeting, but not the public hearing.
The public hearing by statute lasts for 24 hours past the end of this meeting, correct, Jim?
That's correct.
So give me the language that we need to say it so we say it correctly.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for 24 hours and continue the item until the next meeting of June 8th.
Is that adequate to continue the public hearing for 24 hours and continue the action item?
Continue the public hearing consistent with the policy.
No action is needed on the public hearing. It's taken care of statutorily. The only
Okay.
action that's needed is to vote on the item at the next meeting.
Okay. So let's withdraw all these motions that we have going so far, and we need a motion to, continue this for action at our next meeting.
Action at the next meeting, yes, that's correct.
Okay, on Monday, June 8th. So do we have a motion to continue this for action at our next meeting, Monday, June 8th?
So moved.
All right, we'll poll the board. Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky,
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right. Item 5B is a public hearing on a non-contiguous annexation for one parcel totaling 38.99 acres, PIN number 17738869227, located at 1425 Eagle Rock Road, and we're going to hear again from Assistant Planning Director Brian Coates.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This public hearing is the second one you have this evening. It's on annexation of the parcel on the project that was just in the previous slides, 38.99 acres located at 1425 Eagle Rock Road. Approval of the ordinance for annexation petition located at 1425 will be considered today. It's been advertised. The property owner, Edward Gerke, has submitted an annexation request. Plans have been submitted to develop the parcel into a new residential subdivision. In order to gain access to needed utilities, annexation is required. The town clerk has certified the sufficiency of the annexation petition. The property is currently located within the residential agricultural district. The applicant has submitted R7 conditional district rezoning request, which was just before you. The proposed annexation area would require service of utilities and need to be annexed. It's a map of the site. Staff recommends approval of the annexation request.
All right. Anyone have any questions? We'll open the public hearing. I guess we need another motion, the same, to continue the item for our next meeting, Monday, June 8th.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to continue the decision to our next meeting on June the 8th.
Okay. So the motion to continue at our next meeting, poll board, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornasky,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right. Now, our last public hearing is a public hearing on a zoning text amendment to sections 2.3, 3.3, and 19.3 of the UDO to create a new nursery and garden center use. Mr. Coates.
The item before you would create a new UDO classification for nursery/garden center. The request before you is to hold a public hearing on this text amendment. The applicant is the town of Wendell, and the item before you is nursery garden centers currently do not exist in our town UDO. We have received questions and inquiries over the last 6 months regarding where a nursery or garden center would be permitted. Staff reviewed our current use table and thought adding a specific category for the nursery garden centers would be appropriate. There were questions if they could just go under general retail or outdoor storage, but they're really kind of a combination of retail and indoor and outdoor storage. So we thought to actually just have a category, make it clear for applicants and people proposing that use, where their use fit in. So a nursery garden center is an establishment primarily engaged in retail sales of plants, flowers, sod, shrubs, trees that may be grown in greenhouses or field grown, in addition to garden accessories and materials such as mulch, decoration stone, intended for ornamental or landscaping purposes. We anticipate this use, as we gain more residential rooftops, it could be a use that could be really valuable to have locally instead of people traveling sometimes to other areas to get some of these goods. The use could include retail sales structure for the purpose of selling things. As proposed, outdoor storage or bulk items or aggregate materials shall be located in the side or rear yard and be fully screened is what our staff proposal was. And I'll explain that when I get to the planning board recommendation, from view of any street right-of-way with plantings, walls, or fences. We would propose to amend section 2.3 of the matrix to add nursery and garden center, where it would be permitted with some standards in residential, agriculture, commercial, highway, and then manufacturing and industrial districts. Here's a sample of the table we would add that use. To amend additional standards, any outdoor storage of bulk items or aggregate materials, including but not limited to soil, sand, mulch, all those things listed, shall be located in the side or rear yard fully screened from view of any street right-of-way with plantings, walls, or fences. The definition we would add so that's in the use table and in the UDO. At their May 4th planning board meeting, the planning board voted 7-0 in favor of the requested zoning text amendment with the following modification. They recommend replace fully screened with partially screened, which staff is supportive of that as well. So the planning board voted 7-0 in favor, and their recommendation staff is certainly comfortable with that partially screened. Proposed zoning text amendment is found to be reasonable in order to diversify and increase the per capita tax base by providing more opportunities for business. Furthermore, the proposed amendments are found to be consistent with the following principle of the comp plan: diversify and increase the per capita tax base, provide for a diverse workforce with a broad range of skills, making Wendell a more self-sustaining community. Staff recommends approval of the proposed text amendment, and I can field any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Coates? Yeah.
So, Brian, if this use currently exists, where do we find them? I guess what I'm at, that's the first question. Like, do we have these currently, and what are they classified under currently?
So right now,
Or is this a new thing that a new goal we're trying to reach?
So planning board had some questions about what we would classify, like Bridgers, and that's a farm supply, we wouldn't classify it as a garden center. I mean, they're selling to mostly farm supply or at-home hobby farm, and they're not really selling the same nursery gardens. I tend to think of nursery gardens as like Dwayne's in Smithfield or Atlantic Gardens on Atlantic Ave in Raleigh, kind of those indoor-outdoor, more towards the homeowner side of things, but could be for contractors, other small businesses. The facility that's on Marshburn Road, I believe, is just under manufactured industrial as outdoor storage. And so they have some of the same products, but they're not what we would classify as a nursery garden center. Nursery garden centers could have indoor-outdoor space, restrooms, educational facilities to teach people how to, plant gardens, do all kinds of activities, and be indoor-outdoor with a mix of materials. So.
Any other questions from the board? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. I believe we had no one from the public this time. So with that, if there are no more questions from the board, I need a motion to continue this item for our next meeting, Monday, June 8th.
So moved.
All right, we're going to poll the board. Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, item 5D is a public hearing on the zoning text amendment to section 15.3 of the Unified Development Ordinance as it relates to the approval process for final development plans. Mr. Coates.
Yep. Final one of the public hearings is a text amendment to section 15.13 of the UDO as it relates to approval process for final development plans. It's action on the proposed text amendment as it relates to the final development plans would occur on June 8th. The item summary. The purpose of a conditional district is to give an alternative means of land development. Conditional districts, once the preliminary plan is approved here, most applicants then take that preliminary plan and go into construction drawing phase, which is a lot more detailed on details of roads, buildings, electrical, street lights in more detail. And they're currently the UDO, and I'll skip just a few of these. Currently under the current process, the town's TRC committee reviews the final development plan for compliance. So after it goes here for preliminary approval, the applicant then develops their final development plan. Planning staff looks at it to make sure, okay, you got approved for, an example would be 50 homes with 2 streets. And when you start doing your construction drawings, let's just say you decide, I don't want to build one of those streets, even though I got approved for it. Currently in the UDO, we would say to them, you need to go back to town board and get approval for that. This is a significant change. There's a whole section in the UDO that signifies when something is significant and it needs to come back to the board. What is currently occurring by our UDO is that the final plan after staff and TRC has said, this looks like what you got approved by the town board a while back, you now need to go back to planning board and see if they agree with us. And so I think during this COVID process, we had quite a few projects on hold because we couldn't get them back to planning board. And it made us, evaluate that final step. If staff and TRC feel it's consistent, that extra 30 days, or in this case, 2 months or so, held up projects. And we kind of thought, what is this step for if it's the same as what was already approved? Now, if it's different, there's a mechanism in place to bring it back to you, Or the developer could take a chance and go back to planning board or staff and say, well, it's not significant, but there's a process to evaluate those requests. So we as staff are just feeling it's an extra step that it doesn't serve a purpose. There's not been any cases where TRC and the planning staff have said, this is consistent with what you got approved for, and the planning board said no. And so we proposed eliminating that final step for people, as we felt it was redundant to what they've already been through during construction drawing phase. Planning board did vote not to approve the recommendation because it would eliminate their last final step on a project, and their vote was, I believe, 6-1. So our proposal was to have the zoning administrator determine if there were any changes that were not listed, what that interpretation would be. And so you can see here in the UDO already says if you're adding land or removing land, you have to come back to this board. If you're modifying criteria, design standards, or other requirements, you have to come back to this board. A change in land use or development type beyond that's permitted by the master plan, you need to come back here. When there's an introduction of a new vehicle street or road, you need to come back to this board. So we felt like if there's already this portion in here clearly identified when it needs to come back to this board, we felt like just removing that step for consistency and making it a smoother process. And I can field any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Coates?
I do. Commissioner Deloach, just point of clarification. We're not making any drastic changes that run through. If it's consistent with what we as a board decide, then we're simply eliminating it going back through an additional time.
Correct.
Is that?
Yeah, that's our staff interpretation is if a developer has spent months and months developing construction drawings, staff and TRC have said it's very similar to what you got approval for. And then we have to say, oh, and by the way, your final step before you can start construction is you got to go back to the planning board at their next meeting. And depending on the meeting schedule, that can slow things down. And also, it's a step where the planning board, I think traditionally didn't see a lot of them, but since we have so many conditional districts, there's just always something on that agenda for that, whether it be an office building or a subdivision. So it's an extra step at the end that just seems odd because people are like, well, what happens if the planning board says no? But TRC said yes and staff already said yes. And so it creates this fear too that like we've spent a lot of money and time developing construction drawings and it's a final hurdle that just seems redundant.
Well, I'll just say that I had a couple of conversations, and I think that the perception was that we, from planning board, not speaking for them, but it was almost like we're trying to circumvent the process, and that's totally not what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we don't feel that way at all.
Okay.
Brian, I have a question. So, and just to kind of go off what Commissioner Deloach was saying, from the, planning board approves it, we approve it, TRC and staff approves it. So between like our approval and that staff's final kind of stamp of, things look consistent, how many, whether it be a small change or big change, how many changes are occurring in that time frame? I guess because we don't see that a lot, and so, I mean, how much is really happening between what we say, yeah, that's good for, versus what they come back with?
So I'll give you an example. Preliminary plans come in, get reviewed by TRC probably anywhere from 2 to 4 times before it goes to planning board. Planning board makes a recommendation to you all. You all schedule an official public hearing. Preliminary plan, then you make a decision, approve, deny. Once an applicant gets preliminary approval, they then start construction drawing phase, final development plan, which traditionally can take probably 3 to 9 months of engineering work. Because that's where they determine exactly where that sidewalk will be, what the slopes will be, and a lot more detail engineering goes into it. So once they submit construction drawing plans, we send that back out to TRC to see if they have any comments. Traditionally, that's another 2 to 4 times with TRC based on a project. When TRC, everything's been addressed by TRC in staff, we then sign construction drawings that it meets what was preliminary approved. And then, technically, right before we sign it, we have to go back to planning board to say, you know, this case you approved maybe a year or 2 ago, do the construction drawings look the same as the preliminary approval? And they make a motion yes or no. If there's significant changes, like what's identified in the UDO, it has to come back to you before construction drawings would ever get approved. And we've had applicants, once you've given preliminary approval, call and say, well, what if I don't want to build that street? Or what if I want to add a stormwater pond? Those are significant changes that need to come back to you. So that's already catching those significant changes. Minor changes might be where the water and sewer line goes, which can get adjusted based on soil type, but that's, the major changes are already coming back through a process.
Yeah.
So.
And then how many times, I guess, in that scenario where everybody's approved and it goes back to the planning board, and I know you haven't been here for a long time, but in your experience, how many times does the planning board then come back and saying, no, that doesn't match up, or no, that doesn't look right?
I think since I've been here, we've had 6 development plans go back to planning board, and every time they've said, yes, that's
Okay.
preliminary plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
What catches people from making changes is they don't want to come back through another series of public hearings and come back to you. So they don't want to make significant changes. They want to do what they got preliminary approval for.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
And those, Commissioner Deloche, those are captured in the, I think it was A through F scenarios, all that, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, we'll open the public hearing. We received no citizen input for this. So we need a motion to continue this item to the next meeting, Monday, June 8th.
So moved.
All right, whole board, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloche,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
Right. Moving to our administrative items. Item 6A is appointments to the Town of Wendell Planning Board and Economic Development Committee. We're going to hear from Town Clerk Megan Howard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Staff requests that the board take action to appoint citizens to serve on vacant positions for the Planning Board and the Economic Development Commission. Recruitment for the Town of Wendell's Citizen Advisory Boards began in February and closed at the end of April. Communication efforts included advertising posted on the town's website, calendar, newsfeed, events page, and Citizen Advisory Board pages. An e-board post was posted on the sign on Wendell Boulevard. Social media marketing launched throughout the months on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. A PSA video was posted on the town's social media pages, and advertising was posted in When in the Dell. The Citizen Advisory Board recruitment process was adjusted to provide safe social distancing at Town Hall during COVID-19. Staff requested on Tuesday, May 12th, that the Board of Commissioners review the application sent via email for the Planning Board and Economic Development Committee, and follow up with applicants on any questions concerning their applications. So the Planning Board has 2 vacancies available. One is an in-town vacancy with a term ending or lasting for 3 years, and one ETJ vacancy with a term lasting for 2 years. The Economic Development Committee has 5 vacancies with terms lasting for 2 years. The following citizen advisory boards will be filled at the upcoming Town of Wendell Board of Commissioner meetings. June 8th will be the Appearance Commission and the Board of Adjustment, and then June 22nd will be the Parks and Rec Commission and the Tree Board. The same process will be used for the appointments considered at this meeting. The clerk will inquire with applicants not appointed to the planning board and EDC if they would like to be considered on subsequent available boards at the next board meeting date. Commissioner Boyette has already received the ballots that I'm about to pass out to you, and he will be providing his votes via the Teams meeting, and also will be texting me his vote. So with that, I'm going to pass out the ballots for the in-town planning board vacancy. This is one vacancy with a 3-year term. We had 13 applicants, and if you could vote for one and provide me your ballot when you're done voting.
Did I vote? Okay. I was just making sure that I remember something.
Almost forgot.
So we actually have oh, sorry. Commissioner Boyette, could you show me your ballot for the planning board in-town vacancy, please? Okay. So the vote was 3 votes for Jonathan Olson and 2 votes for Jeremy Friet. So Jonathan Olson will be appointed to the in-town vacancy on the planning board. The second ballot that will be passed out is the ETJ vacancies. We had 2 applicants. One vacancy is for a 2-year term, so I'll be passing those out. Commissioner Boyette, could you provide your ballot, please? Thank you, sir. So we had 4 votes for Candy Killian Wood and 1 vote for Crystal Keys. So the vote goes to Candy Killian Wood for the ETJ vacancy. The last ballots that I'll be posting or passing out will be for the Economic Development Committee. There are 5 vacancies for 2-year terms on the EDC, and we had 5 applicants, but that doesn't mean that you have to vote for all 5 applicants just because we only had 5. If you wanted to leave a vacancy open for me to ask members who applied for the planning board or other boards if they would like to apply and we vote on that vacancy at a later date, I'm welcome to do that. So if you could just write in, leave 1 vacancy or however many you would like, or just vote for whomever you would like based on the 5 applicants. Thank you, John. So the votes for the 5 vacancies were given to all 5 applicants by majority vote. Braxton Honeycutt, Rick Schrum, Crystal Keys, Ashley Anderson, and David Grace will be filling those 5 vacancies. And I'll see you guys again at the June 8th meeting for the Appearance Commission and the Board of Adjustment.
Right, our next item, item 6B, is the adoption of fiscal year 2021 budget and fee schedule. I'm going to hear from Town Manager Mark Collins.
Good evening, Board. Tonight is the hopefully end of a very long process that's a culmination of probably the major policy document that the Board approves each year. It's your budget, and there's really 3 components to what you're approving tonight. So I want to be clear on that. The first is you're adopting the budget document as a policy document that guides staff and how we implement and what we implement in the coming year. The budget ordinance is a statutory requirement. It's got to be balanced with revenues and expenditures. And then the final is setting the fee schedule. So those are the 3 items, and I'll briefly touch on each of those 3 items. Probably more so than the I forget how large it is now, too many page document of data to peruse through. So talking about the document itself, as I said, that's your primary policy document for the town. It connects the fiscal appropriations, the money, to your policy. And that's an important part to this. This is accomplishing your goals. It's the core service of what we do with the town, but it also is moving the town forward to meet you as an elected body's goals. It provides information, and quite a bit of it, clearly and concisely. Thanks to the citizens the last couple of weeks that have pointed out when it doesn't do that, we've made corrections, text changes in our document to make sure it's as accurate and clear as possible. It meets the budget priorities and financial policies set by the town and advances your strategic initiatives. It includes a 5-year capital improvement plan. Reminder that the first year is the capital budget. What we're actually doing years 2 through 5 are for planning purposes only and subject to change. It includes a staffing needs analysis for the next 10 years, as well as a population growth projection. Those 2 are combined pretty closely. As long as the town keeps growing, the staff to provide, maintain existing level of services increases with it. If growth slows at some point in the future, the staffing projection will change to reflect that as well. It's static. It's not a static document. It's a living document that changes over time. And probably one of the newest things that we're proud of in this budget, and finance worked really hard on this, so kudos to Butch and Garrett and the rest of the finance team, is that the addition of operating budget projections. So I know we talked a little bit about in your budget retreat about budgets needing to be sustainable over time. So when you're setting tax rates and you're setting fees and you're looking at what you're expending, it's good to make sure it balances this year and be legal, but you want to be able to look 3 to 5 years out and go, are we close enough that we can solve the problem in those years? And this budget does that. That was a recommendation by GFOA when they reviewed our budget document last year, so we're also addressing a best practice for GFOA. Within the budget, you'll see, or as you've heard before a few times now, there are 5 new positions this year. including 2 police officers, a stormwater program manager, a public works specialist, and an accountant. You might have noticed that in public works, the stormwater program manager is posted right now. Reclassified an existing position that became open after y'all approved the pay plan and created that position in the scale. So we're able to use an existing position to go ahead and meet that statutory need. So next fiscal year, we'll post 2 public works specialists later in the year when that need comes open. Police officers start in the budget January 1st, so we won't post to the second half of the year. So there's a half a year funding for those positions. And also the accountant, entry-level accountant in finance, just to deal with the increased work that we're having to process. From a personnel side also, it does include a 3% in-range adjustment to help deal with compression that moves existing staff in the range. It implements the pay and class study that was approved at the last meeting by the board. It accounts right now for a 15% increase in healthcare costs. The final numbers are still coming in the coming weeks. We expect that to come down. So there are a couple head starts we're getting already before the budget's adopted at spending less than what gets appropriated, and that's always a good thing, especially with uncertainty in revenues right now, to have a couple head starts on next year's budget. We're really looking at that to come in under 10%. The capital budget for FY 2021 is $11,270,724. Again, reflecting some of the policy goals of the board is how do we reinvest in taking care of our streets and infrastructure. There's a significant investment of over $4 million in that area. Maintaining and replacing our vehicles, equipment, and technology. The budget continues to replace equipment and vehicles as required by our review of equipment. Probably the biggest thing is a generational investment, and that's in a new town hall. This existing building has served the town well, but the next generation needs a town hall that's going to serve that generation. The recent struggles with our public health condition has made it hard to work in an environment with old air handlers and not being able to move air in and out in this space. In addition to ADA non-compliance and everything else you've heard before. So the reasons we need a new town hall continue to add up. But that investment is here. The borrowing for capital projects this year is $8.5 million. The budget lays out how that's well within the capacity of the town to make that payment. You want the general philosophy on any kind of governmental borrowing, which is rare and far between, is that the taxpayers that enjoy the benefit of the facility and infrastructure pay for it. So that's when you borrow. So it's a longer term, larger ticket item, like a building or infrastructure. And then the $90,000 in economic and community development is the bulk of the funding for the update of the comprehensive land use plan. So finishing that up next year. Obviously from the challenging community conversations that have been had around planning and development and uncertainty about the appropriateness, that's a timely investment and planning process for the town to go through. The budget ordinance required by statute that sets the revenues, expenditures, levies the tax rate for the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. The total proposed budget, all funds, $20,007,171. That includes primarily the general fund at $19.5 million and the water and sewer funds at $500,000. The water and sewer funds, as you know, just retire past debt related to the merger. That debt is completely paid off when we complete the merger this year. The ad valorem tax rate, current rate is 49 cents per $100 valuation. This was a revaluation year for Wake County. The Wake County tax appraiser assessed our valuation at $945 million. That's still the lowest valuation for municipalities in Wake County. So every dollar that we do get in property tax is greatly appreciated. Unfortunately, it just doesn't generate as much as other communities for the same rate. The revenue neutral plus growth rate established by the Wake County Property Assessor was 41 cents per 100, and the recommended budget rate before you is 47 cents, which reduces the current rate 2 cents. Within the ordinance, you saw the list of revenue types and the estimates provided. One requirement of a statutory requirement is to identify the fund balance that's to be appropriated at $744,618. That appropriation is consistent with your adopted policy related to the use of fund balance, in that it is being used for capital projects. Probably more importantly is there remaining balance in that savings account in the event of need. The current policy is to have 40% of operational balance. Despite using 744, we added more than that to our fund balance last year. So there's actually a net increase in the percentage of operating from 88.5 to 91.4. So we've put more money in the savings account than we're taking out, is one way to look at that. It shows the expenses. Your revenues have to match expenses. And then the total debt service, which is another requirement, is $891,200. Reminding you of the process to get to this point. Formally by statute, the full budget with budget message was presented on or around May 6th. A budget hearing was held on May 11th. After that budget was out, what the statute requires is from the point that it's provided to you in its complete form, that 10 days have to pass before action. Thus, you couldn't take action at the public hearing 5 days after. Next available meeting was this meeting for action. The third and final item is the fee schedule. There's no big change in the fee schedule this year. Despite some service expense increases in solid waste, we've been able to do the math and maintain the existing rates for those. The only increase is a $10 increase to the return check fee that matches the bank, and we've consolidated some general special event fees into one fee for rental. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions of the board on this year's budget.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Mark, Commissioner Tarnaski, on the fees. I had a question about the golf cart fees, when we talked about maybe lowering the fee to promote the green electric golf carts, not charge so much more than gas-powered cars in town. We're only charging like $20. Maybe lowered that to 40 or 50, half of what, and it's awfully high. $100 just to drive a golf cart in town, so just curious about that.
Yeah, there's two reasons staff did not recommend changing the golf cart fee. We did review it as requested by the board. The first is there is a cost for staff to administer the program and conduct the inspection. That's averaged across all of the carts that are inspected, both first year and later years. The second is the board discussed a policy about making sure we had some funding for a recreation scholarship program. And while no formal action was taken on that, staff did honor that request and create the scholarship program, and that is continued again in this year's budget. So those were the two reasons we left it. It wasn't going to be a significant enough change in cost based on those expenses and considerations to be meaningful. But you're the board. You can tell us at any point what we need to do on that.
Can you tell us what the total line item is?
For the,
ballpark, 100 golf carts, $100.
Was it like 7,500 or something?
the budgeted amount for golf cart is $5,000. There's a growth projection. Last year it was 3,500. There's a large demand for the service, and so we've increased the expected revenue to reflect that increase in carts. They're quite popular around town.
I'll speak to and I certainly appreciate this is Commissioner Joyner. I appreciate Commissioner Tarnowski's question, and I'll speak to a little of the history of it. I think it was the mayor, myself, and Chief Carter back here that figured out the vast majority of where we would land on this policy. And the $100 was twofold. One, staff time. At the time, we didn't realize if this thing was going to be 5 golf carts or 10 golf carts. I don't think that we ever thought it would be as big as it is today. But the other piece of it was both a social good and a social deterrent, to there being a formal process that you go through so that we don't worry about there actually being a process that we go through that we have to fund, because it's important that the police do that process every year, put hands on the golf carts. If you've ridden on them, like, they can become unsafe, like that part's important to us. So I think it's an exchange we make. I certainly would love to see that fee lower. I think that we can certainly find ways to do it, but at the end of the day, I understand why that fee is about where it is. I think for a cost perspective, I understand the desire, but also I told Chief that if he just let me have golf carts, I'd never fight him on this fee that much. So that was me doing that.
Also, when you consider the car fee, that's not something that our staff handles. That's handled, inspections and things like that are handled elsewhere. And there is a lot of staff time that goes into the golf carts that are very, very popular.
And I'll speak to that too. I think as well as we as a board work hard, or actually we work hard. I won't take any credit for it at all, actually. Our town sets up very nicely for golf carts. I mean, if you can think of how far you can travel in our town on a golf cart, it's really pretty nice. It is. I mean, how far you can travel through side streets and things like that. So just the larger area that you can go, I think if it was a situation where all you can do is drive around your neighborhood, then I think a lower fee would be much more because there's less you can do. But as much as you can go, many places you can travel, it does create a situation where more vehicles are on the road, and I think that is not a bad price for how much you can do on one.
But I do agree, I always want everything to be less money, but that is how that came about. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, I guess I can drive my vehicle for $98 a year anywhere in the United States, so I figured. So that was my only question, thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, well, need a motion.
Are you looking for 3 separate motions, Madam Mayor? Is that how we best handle this?
I think you can make one motion for the budget and fee schedule, is that correct?
Attorney is nodding yes.
He's nodding yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2021 Town of Wendell budget, the 2021 budget ordinance, and the 2021 fee schedule.
All right, so we have a motion to adopt the 2021 budget ordinance, and fee schedule. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a quick comment at the end of this budget process. We just talked about how the golf cart piece worked out, but listening to Mark talk, it dawned on me that Chief Carter and, Chief Carter, Mayor Gray, and those of us joining us by phone, or maybe some of you that remember previous budgets where the goal was to have a UDO or land use plan that we redid, or the goal was to figure out how to finance the new town hall and how to eventually know that we're going to have to grow into that need, and kind of feeling like at some points, and maybe it was because Commissioner Boyette was reminding us at every point that we were already behind the 8 ball on that project, that we were already in that need. So seeing this level of investment in the future, the capital investments in this budget are like none that I've seen since I've been on the board. The tax rate, the tax rate's going down. I completely understand, and this may be the first time that I do this from this dais, but I completely understand people that have moved here real recently. When you say, oh, it's only going down 2 cents, this rate's been at 49 cents as long as I can remember, and the last time before that was an 08 correction, to the best of my knowledge. The investment in long-term parks and recreation at the last couple of weeks haven't taught you that being outside and having open space that is marked off for public use in the future is not something that we should be investing in. It certainly has for me and my family, and being outside and just realizing that sometimes going to the lake or the beach or the other place that you go to enjoy time off isn't an option. Sometimes Wendell's the place to be, and I certainly think this budget is setting us up to do that. The fact that it's keeping our operating, our fund balance for general fund where it does while making these capital investments is strong. There's no such thing as a perfect budget document, and there's always things that you can fix and you can make better. As you see, this is the most exciting time of the year for me. I literally was trying to think of, because it's just a little bit and we can fix it, but this is a good process. This has been a good process since the beginning. I've enjoyed working with some of the new commissioners through this process and seeing where our priorities land out, where we're apart and where we're together. I'm happy to vote for it. I'm done talking about it, but I wanted to highlight these capital things that we've never gotten to talk about in previous budgets.
I agree. It's very, very exciting to me. We have a bright, bright future here, and the budget time isn't usually exciting for us, and I'm very excited about it this year. I told Mark when he said we were proposing to lower the rate that I may have a tear in my eye. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the future, and we're just, we're killing it here, and I'm very excited about that. So, any other comments? Who wants to do the honors? Oh, we already had it. We had to poll the board, right? All right, so Commissioner Joyner, Commissioner Deloach.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz.
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky.
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you all for your policy direction and leadership. Without that, these budgets don't happen. You gave staff clear leadership and policy direction, and that made it a joy for finance and staff and departments to work to meet those goals. So thank you.
Item 6C is the waiver of building permit fees for Operation Coming Home projects, which is sponsored by the Home Builders Association of Raleigh-Wake County. I'm going to hear from Assistant Planning Director Brian Coates again.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is a waiver of building permit fees for Operation Coming Home, which is sponsored by the Home Builders Association of Raleigh-Wake County. The action is to approve the waiving of building permit fees totaling $260 for the Operation Coming Home project sponsored by the Home Builders. In 2007, this is a great program that's been happening. Since 2007, a group of local veterans and members of the Home Builders Association decided to establish a project for severely wounded veterans. The mission of the project is to aid a local military service member who is severely wounded in combat by fulfilling his or her family desire to live the American dream of home ownership, thus the creation of Operation Coming Home. The HBA, Home Builders Association, has identified its next Operation Coming Home project in Wendell. And they're asking for the building fee waiver, and the home is free and clear for the family of the deceased veteran in this case. The home is for the family of Sergeant First Class Eli Barreto Ortiz, a 34-year-old soldier who was stationed in Fort Bragg, who was killed in combat. The home is located at 1604 Stagecoach Trail in the Wendell Falls neighborhood. On average, a little over one home a year is finished in the program and donated. The builder in this case is Garmin Homes, who is a builder in Wendell Falls and Wake County. So they're asking to waive the fees for Wendell and Wake County. The Wake County Board of Commissioners will be taking action on this item June 1st at their next Board of Commissioner meeting. And I know Garmin is planning an event, I think a parade I did see today, like not a traditional groundbreaking like you would normally see, but a parade through the neighborhood. And so the item before you is to waive the fees. Total for us is $260. For Wake County, it's roughly $711, and their Board of Commissioners will take action June 1.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Coates?
Motion to approve the waiver of fees.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the fee waiver. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky?
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
All right. What a wonderful project. I'm proud to have that in Wendell. Can you let us know about the parade, when it's going to be? Yeah, okay. I've done a few. I'll do that one too. Item 6D is a recurring minor street closing on West Campen Street for the Wendell Farmers Market on Saturdays, May 16th, 2020 to October 3rd, 2020. And we're going to hear from Assistant to the Manager, Stephanie Smith.
Good evening. Well, the title pretty much says it all. We are requesting the board to approve a recurring minor street closure on West Campen Street for the Wendell Farmers Market. The market runs from May 16th to October 3rd, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Ordinarily, for a minor street closure, the manager has authority to approve, but just like last year, since this is a recurring event, we wanted the board to officially approve the weekly closure. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Lutz here, make a motion to approve the minor street closing for the Wendell Farmers Market on Camden Street.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minor street closing for the Wendell Farmers Market on Campen Street. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz.
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky.
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right. Item 7, other business update on board committees by town board members. This past week, I attended Campo. We held a public hearing on the Wake Transit Work Plan, a public hearing on the Transportation Improvement Program Amendment Number 1, heard a presentation about the fiscal year 2021 recommended Wake Transit Work Plan, and scheduled an adjustment due to the COVID-19 pandemic and how that will impact future projects. This is particularly interesting. We heard an update on Campo projects and programs, funding update. The North Carolina DOT has apparently fallen below their statutorily mandated cash floor required for them to enter into new contracts for transportation projects. So as a result, active projects can continue to avoid penalties and maintain infrastructure and what have you. And they will be paying invoices from private sector as long as funds are available. They will continue DMV operations, and they will have emergency response and only hire critical staff. They are right now not permitted to enter into any new contracts, do any right-of-way acquisitions, or purchase any equipment whatsoever. So that changes, sure I'll hear about and I'll let you know. We received an update from public participation, to the public participation plan regarding electronic meeting, and, heard an update about the beginnings of the Northeast Area Study, of which, Wendell is part, and the dates for virtual symposiums for that, June 9th and June 13th. And if you have any questions about that, you can look at neasupdate.com, and all the information is on there for that. The other one we're going to hear from tonight is Mayor Pro Tem John Boyette of the Technical Review Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was unable to attend the TRC meeting that was held earlier this month. It was held virtually, and the main subject of the meeting was street width and emergency vehicle access in the expansion of Edgemont Landing. Other than that, it's mostly a lot of stuff slowed down due to the pandemic, but the meeting was held, and it was held virtually and safely.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move into our commissioner's comments. We'll start with Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just reiterate my thanks for the hard work from staff that went into the budget, and the hard work that staff's been doing over the past several weeks through virtual meetings and setting all of this up, all while factoring in all of the problems it's creating, and then coming out with the budget. I understand that my comments to most people who don't watch a budget every single year evolve sound over the top, and that I'm over eager about a weird policy document. But to those that have watched the town of Wendell progress each year, you know, this is the first time in a budget that I think I've heard we're going to add staff, and there was multiples, and there wasn't a conversation about, like, oh wait, you mean staff has been more than one, plural, not one staff member, because that's historically it's been one in the police department, one in finance, one here. There's a lot of good growth happening, but there's a lot of long-term plans that are coming to fruition, and that's what really excites me, the long-term investments that are being made. Wanted to highlight that, and then just say with that growth comes awesome opportunities in lots of places where people can step up and help. We did board appointments tonight. We're going to continue doing the board appointments. Those are never easy, and I think I speak for the board. There's always qualified people applying to be in these positions, and now with this growth, there's even more people that are qualified to be in these spots. So please continue to work with us and apply, and continue to help us achieve all of these goals that we're talking about. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Deloach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will mirror some of those same things. This is obviously my first budget cycle, and I was happy to learn about it, excited to participate, and glad that we were able to achieve many of our objectives. So thank you to staff for that. Much appreciated. Thank you to the applicants again. I stress involvement, and we had tons of applications, and I do not want you to stop that. We want you to be involved. We want you to show up. We want you to call. We want you to email. And, you know, I respect passion, and I want you to care. So I hope that you will continue to do that. Finally, Coming Home Project. I've had the opportunity to work with Gorman Homes. I'm excited for them. It's a great company, a lot of great folks there, and I'm really looking forward to that, and very happy for that sweet family, and looking forward to that project. So that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutz?
Yeah, yes, thank you so much. I too, with this budget cycle, I've grown to like these more as I've been doing these, and it's hard not to like it this year when we're talking about saving citizens money, and also at the same time continuing to further better the town and better what we're offering for people too. So I just commend, you know, everybody, the town staff. We worked hard on this one. Because it's good, and it's nice to see the plans, nice to see the vision for each year, not just taking it 1 year at a time and just seeing kind of what you have. So I really commend that. And then again, just thanks everybody's been coming out and supporting the farmers market. I know there's been a few folks, or a few vendors there so far, but they've had some really neat stuff and different stuff in the past year. So I highly recommend you get out on Saturday mornings, get downtown and take a look at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Tarnasky?
No comment this month, thanks.
Commissioner Boyette?
Yes, I just want to say again, thank you to staff for putting together this budget document. It does represent years of hard work by both town staff and the board as a whole. I feel like we've put in place a lot of things that have allowed us to get to the point where we can lower the tax rate and continue to hire good qualified staff. Budget document outstanding again, and that's all my comments.
Thank you. I just wanted real briefly, I know we've thanked the staff 100 times, but I really want to echo that myself. Our town staff, our employees, our town manager, Stephanie, Brian, Bill, all of you, and the ones that aren't in here tonight, and we're not all here because of the virus, and we can't all be in the same place at the same time right now. But everything that they do takes 3 extra steps. There's 3 extra phone calls, there's extra effort for every single thing, and their plate and what's been expected of them has not been reduced at all. If anything, it's been piled on. And I have seen people just rise to the challenge and just take care of things, and I really appreciate that. It's very fluid, it changes all the time, little things change, just like they changed tonight about how to handle the public hearing. Things are changing and developing constantly, and we're all working very hard to make sure we do things correctly. And I appreciate the staff's efforts for that, so if y'all please share that with them. We are absolutely open for business in Wendell. I would say that we're progressing right on track. Very little's changed with some modifications to make sure that we abide by the governor's orders. There are a lot of exciting things coming here this summer, so we need to hang in there and see what happens next. It's going to be great. I think that's exhibited very clearly in our budget document. I'm very proud of that. I'm particularly excited about how we have made decisions and policy decisions. We're spending money in furtherance of those, and we're lowering the tax rate. I mean, gosh, that's good stuff. So I'm very excited about that. And I also want to just give you a real quick reminder also about the farmers market. We have several vendors. Some come every Saturday. Some rotate and go to other markets and other communities. So they might be there the first Saturday or the first and third or whatever. So there's always something new to see, one that maybe you didn't see the Saturday before. There's produce, flour, soap, honey, sauces, salsa, bagels, and I may have left someone out. If I did, I apologize. But there's a lot to see down there, and it's a nice way to get out on a Saturday morning. So I urge you to please come down there, 9 to 1 on Saturdays. All right, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned.